we're back in a recession. How was it leading a company and scaling a company through something like that?
So I think the COVID situation is definitely caught everyone off guard. Um,
Sure.
and and I think a lot of people have to adapt, right? And same with Spokio. I mean, just to be very frank, we weren't as impacted as travel industry, for example, where they see like more than 70-80% drop, right, in their volumes and things like that. We weren't impacted that way. But that said, we had to really rethink what the future of work looked like, right? Because prior to the COVID, like pretty much everybody works in the Pasadena office. Actually, 5 years ago, we follow Yahoo and we have a no work from home policy, right?
Right.
But actually, fast forward to today, even though we relax that policy and people can work from home and things like that, have more flexible hours, but still, almost all of us work at the office. But then suddenly, everyone has to move out, right? Suddenly, no one can come to the office, and so we have to be very flexible and being very adaptive and really think about what the future of work look like. So that's one of the things that we have to really adapt.
Okay. And on that note, I find that super interesting because it's like, for I advise a few startups, and one of them is we have a bit of an older employees that have kids, right? And for a lot of people, they want to be at home, and it's fine. But then we have to offer access to everyone. What's you guys' outlook on when it comes to that? Is it a preference point of like, hey, if you want to come, you can come, or is it like we want to have a hybrid, or how do you guys go about it? And how do you envision it in moving forward?
So yeah, we have thought about this quite a bit, and eventually we think the future of work will be flexible.
Okay.
And hear me out. Why do we think the future of work will be flexible? Well, first of all, um, because when I was proposing this, actually some members of our leadership team was not comfortable with this idea, right? Going from like pretty much 90 something percent of the teammates working at the office. And suddenly I said, hey, everyone, if you don't have to come to the office, that's fine. It's such a drastic shift. But I personally think this is the future because the aha moment for me is I have a son who is entering the first grade this year, actually. And the first day of his school ever is actually in front of a computer at home.
Yeah.
And and that's when I realized the world will never turn back because there will be a new generation of people where remote learning and remote work is comes naturally. It's kind of like my iPhone moment. When you first held the iPhone, the phone is never going to go back. It's the same thing. And then when I was sharing that experience with the rest of the leadership team, I think everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Sure.
And actually, there's other theories out there. One of the theories is called social cycle theory. And the social cycle theory basically is a reflection of this idea of history repeats itself, right? So, for example, prior to industrialization, everyone was working in the villages. People are living in the villages. And then because of industrialization, people start coming to urban centers and the idea of central office starts to come about, right? And then obviously in the 60s, after World War II, people moved to the suburbs in the early 2000s, reurbanization. Now, what is it going to be? I personally think the cycle is going the other way. So decentralization of office, in my opinion, probably will come about, right? Probably is the next thing. So there's multiple trends and multiple movements, but I personally think the future of work will be flexible and people will have more choice, right? Whether they prefer to work in the office. I wouldn't call it remote first because remote first predicates the idea that everyone likes to work remotely. And that's just not true, right? I would call it flexible work because people have choice. If you like to work remotely, that's fine. If you like to come to the office 5 days a week, that's fine too, right? So people have the choice, and I think that's the future.
Gotcha. just a question just throw out there that like when I hear this a lot, I think last year we also what happened to WeWork, right? And when this happened, I used to live downtown. I'm now in Sherman Oaks, but downtown, all the buildings are just kind of going empty now. Did you, just this personal thought, do you foresee a comeback of the co-working model that then allows flexibility? You can have satellite offices, right? And then all these WeWork type companies kind of booming. Any thoughts on that? Would you guys consider that as an option for your employees?
Yeah, I think so. Now, commercial lease in the United States works more long term, right? It's not the rent is not like on the annual contract. Usually, it's 3 to 5 years. So even though a lot of companies are thinking going remote or flexible and things like that, the truth is the commercial real estate market will lag behind these trends because all the companies, including Spokio, is locked to a long-term lease, right? So I think short term, things won't change that fast. But long term, I actually are bullish about the flexible work or this kind of co-working space because I do think that the centralization or central office, the concept of central office, is going to uh, going to break down. And I
Sure.
think the decentralization of office and office as a second workspace, right? I think that kind of concept, like for example, Starbucks built themselves as the third space, right?
Sure.
The same thing here. The office as a second workspace, but around the countries and different locations. I think that I think that will be the future actually.